Chapter 1. The Ember Valley. In the folds of the northern mountains, where the mist clung to the trees like whispered secrets, there was a village that didn't appear on any map. It was cradled in a high valley between pine-covered slopes and terraced fields of rice that shimmered like bronze under the late summer sun. The villagers called it Gazanuma, Ember Valley, named for the way the winds from the southern ridge carried the scent of old smoke, as if the mountains still remembered an ancient fire that had long gone out. Gazanuma was a place of quiet rhythms. Morning bells rang from the old temple above the fields, summoning not only the faithful, but the birds and foxes as well. Children crossed moss-covered stepping stones to reach the schoolhouse, and elders sat beneath the thatched eaves, shelling chestnuts and telling stories of the old days when fire danced in the sky and spoke to those who listened. To Airi, the village had always felt like a dream wrapped in warm fabric. At 10 years old, she had never seen a city, only heard stories from the postman who came twice a week, his bicycle rattling with news from beyond the mountains. She was small for her age, with black hair that curled at the ends like soot and eyes the color of smoked glass. Her voice was soft, but she had the kind of gaze that seemed to see through things. She lived with her grandfather Ji-chan in a house at the edge of the forest, a place where the trees leaned low and the shadows lingered longer than they should. Ji-chan was once the firekeeper of the village shrine, and though the flames no longer needed tending, he still kept a small hearth burning at all hours, murmuring to it like an old friend. He told Airi stories by that fire, of flame spirits that once guarded the valley and of a time when fire was not something to fear, but something sacred. "The fire remembers," he would say, tapping his pipe on the rim of the hearth, "and sometimes, when it chooses, it speaks." Airi believed him. She had seen the way the flames flickered when he spoke, how sparks leapt like dancers in response to his voice. And sometimes, when she was alone, she thought she heard the faintest voice in the crackling wood. Not words exactly, but something like a song. That morning, the sky was the color of faded peaches, and mist curled along the hills like sleeping dragons. Airi was on her way to school, a satchel of rice balls and dried persimmons slung over her shoulder. As she crossed the stream near the shrine, she paused, her gaze caught by something shimmering beneath the water. It was a stone. No, a shard of glass, glowing faintly orange as if lit from within. She crouched and reached into the cold water, fingers closing around it. The moment her skin touched the shard, a warmth spread through her palm, not unpleasant, but strange. The mist around her seemed to still. "That's not yours," came a voice from behind her. Startled, Airi turned. A boy stood on the opposite bank. He looked to be about her age, though his hair was almost white and his skin had the pale gleam of porcelain. His eyes were a deep, smoky red. "Who are you?" she asked. "I'm Hoshiko," he said, "and that belongs to the fire." Airi looked down at the shard in her hand. It was just in the stream. That's where it sleeps when it's not needed. She frowned, but before she could ask more, Hoshiko turned and disappeared into the mist, his footsteps silent on the mossy stones. She arrived at school distracted, the shard warm in her pocket, her classmates, loud and bright as sunflowers, barely noticed her quiet mood. Among them was Kenta, a boy with an adventurous heart and a perpetual smear of soot on his cheek from sneaking into the temple's bell tower. He was her only real friend, and he noticed something was different. "You look like you saw a ghost," he whispered during writing practice. "Maybe I did," Airi murmured, fingers brushing the glowing shard in her pocket. That night, by the hearth, she showed the shard to Ji-chan. The old man took it in his wrinkled hands and studied it for a long time. "A firecore," he said at last, voice barely above a whisper. "I haven't seen one since I was a boy. They say the spirits hide them when the world grows too noisy." He looked at her with eyes that held the weight of forgotten things. "Keep it close. The fire has chosen you, Airi. But be careful. Fire remembers joy and sorrow." As the wind howled softly outside and the fire crackled in the hearth, Airi felt the shard pulse in her palm. Once, like a heartbeat. That night, she dreamed of a valley ablaze with golden light and a figure with eyes like coals, waiting at the edge of a forest wrapped in flame. Thus began the quiet unraveling of everything Airi thought she knew about her home. In the days to come, she would find that fire, though often feared, could also heal, and that the ancient spirits who once watched over Ember Valley had only been sleeping, waiting for a voice like hers to call them back to the world. But for now, she slept, warm in the flickering glow of her grandfather's fire, the first chapter of her story, settling like ash in the wind. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Smoke. The next morning, Kazunuma awoke to the scent of pine and rain, the mountains shrouded in a hushed silver fog. Airi stirred beneath her quilt, her hand curled instinctively around the firecore. It was no longer warm, but it pulsed faintly, as though sleeping beside her. She opened her fingers and stared at it in the soft morning light. The shard still glowed with that quiet orange, like the last ember in a dying flame. Ji-chan had already stoked the hearth, and the aroma of roasted chestnuts filled the room. He greeted her with a nod and handed her a small cloth pouch. "Keep the fire core with you," he said. "It will feel cold until it's needed. Don't try to wake it." Airi nodded solemnly. She tucked the pouch into her satchel and wrapped herself in her cloak. Outside, the village was quiet, save for the murmur of streams and the rustle of bamboo. Fog hung low along the ridges, like ghosts reluctant to leave. At school, the day passed strangely. Birds didn't sing as much. Even Kenta, usually a whirlwind of mischief, seemed subdued. He met her at the edge of the schoolyard during break, dragging his feet through the damp grass. "Something weird happened last night," he said, eyes darting. "I woke up and the fire in the stove was burning blue, not like a regular flame, and I thought I saw someone in my garden. Someone glowing." Airi's stomach turned. "What did they look like?" "I don't know. They were tall, pale. Their face was covered. I blinked and they were gone." She told him about the boy at the stream, about Hoshiko. Kenta whistled low and impressed. "You met a mountain spirit. My Obasasan says they only show up when something big's about to happen." Later that afternoon, a hush fell over the village. A heavy wind swept down from the ridges, bending the trees and sending crows screaming across the sky. Airi clutched her satchel tight and ran home. the fire core suddenly warm again. As she neared the old stone shrine, she paused. The wind had torn the offering banners free. The shrine door stood ajar, and someone was inside. A figure in a long red cloak knelt before the cold altar. Flames danced in the air around them, small as fireflies. When Airi stepped closer, the figure turned and she saw eyes like molten gold behind a porcelain mask shaped like a fox. "You've awakened it," the figure said. Their voice echoed like embers crackling. "What is it?" Airi whispered. "The fire core, a heart of old flame, one of 7, lost long ago. We've been waiting for it to stir." "Who are you?" The spirit stood. The air around them shimmered with heat despite the cold. "I am N, guardian of forgotten fires. I watch over what once burned bright." They stepped forward, extending a hand. "You must return the fire to its source. The balance has tilted. The mountain sleeps uneasily." Airi hesitated, her breath forming pale clouds. "But I don't understand what I'm supposed to do." "You will. The fire remembers. You carry its memory now." Anne raised a hand to the firecore pouch. The shard glowed fiercely for a heartbeat, then dimmed. "Others will come, some to help, some to harm. Trust the flame, but not every spark." With that, they turned and disappeared into smoke. Back home, Ji-chan listened in silence as Airi told him everything. "The fire spirits are waking," he said, staring into the hearth. Then the stories weren't just stories, they were warnings. He rummaged through an old chest and pulled out a faded scroll. Unrolling it revealed a painted map of Kazunuma, but older, surrounded by 7 crimson symbols. "The 7 hearts of flame," he murmured, "each hidden in a sacred place, each connected to a guardian. When they burn in unison again, the great ember will rise." "What's the great ember?" Ji-chan's gaze was heavy. A fire that once gave the world warmth, but nearly consumed it. The spirit sealed it, but the seal weakens with time and silence. That night, dreams came fierce and strange. Airi stood on a mountaintop as fire raged below, voices whispering her name. She saw Hoshiko reaching for her, an inn burning like a torch in the wind. Then, darkness. In the days that followed, strange things began to stir in Kazamuma. Sparks floated through the fields at night, and children spoke of voices in their stoves. An elder claimed to see a woman made of smoke drift across the pond. Kenta insisted a fox with fire for eyes was following him. Airi and Kenta began meeting in secret, comparing notes, drawing maps, listening to old village songs. They discovered that the shrine near the ridge was once called the Hall of Kindling, and that behind it lay a hidden path. One evening, guided by the fire core's gentle glow, they found the entrance. A narrow gap in the cliffside behind overgrown bamboo. Crawling through, they emerged into a forgotten grove. In its center stood a stone pedestal, blackened by flame. As Airi stepped forward, the fire core leapt from her pouch and floated above the pedestal. It ignited in midair, burning with no fuel. A low hum filled the air. From the woods came a rustling. Hoshiko appeared, barefoot, his eyes glowing faintly. "This was the first flame," he said. "Here, fire was first gifted to humans. It's been sleeping since the last keeper vanished. Until you came, Airi stared into the floating ember. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Her own. What happens now? Now, said Hoshiko, you gather the rest, and you must do it before the hollow wind arrives. What's the hollow wind? Hoshiko's gaze darkened. A spirit of forgetting. It devours warmth, names, memories. It smells fire and seeks to smother it. It's already waking. Suddenly the ember dimmed. The air grew cold. From the shadows a chill swept through the grove, snuffing even the insects' hum. A breathless silence fell, and then Airi heard it. A faint whisper like paper tearing, dry and distant. Kenta clutched her arm. We need to go, now. They fled through the gap in the cliff, hearts pounding. Behind them a shape formed in the mist. Tall, thin, and trailing ash. Back in Jichen's house, Airi pressed the firecore to the hearth. It pulsed, then flared, and warmth returned. We saw it, she whispered. The hollow wind. Jichan said nothing. He stood, walked to the window, and looked out at the dark hills. Then the world will need its firekeepers again. And this time, they must be children. The old have forgotten too much. And so the journey began. The next day, Airi and Kenta packed quietly, dried food, maps, a lantern that once belonged to Jichan, and a book of flame songs. The mountain paths awaited. The firecore burned bright once more. Chapter 3. The Hidden Flame. The trail out of Kazanuma wound up steep slopes, blanketed in cedar and bamboo, the forest silent except for the crunch of frost beneath their boots. Airi and Kenta traveled in the hush of early morning, lantern swinging from Kenta's staff, its light casting long shadows. The firecore, tucked in a pouch against Airi's chest, remained warm. A quiet, steady heartbeat. They followed the old pilgrim paths Jichan had marked, moving through ruins of stone torii and overgrown tea terraces. Somewhere beyond the ridge, In had told them, lay the second heart of flame. By midday, mist closed in. Shapes in the fog danced just out of reach, and the trees seemed to lean closer. Kenta glanced around nervously. I keep thinking I hear voices. Airi nodded, like someone humming, just barely. At a fork in the trail, they found a red cloth fluttering from a tree, a fire prayer charm, faded but intact. The path is right, Airi murmured. They pressed on. Just before dusk, they reached a clearing, ringed by ancient fire pines. At its center stood a squat stone building, half swallowed by vines and earth, a forgotten temple. Kenta pushed open the heavy wooden doors with effort, the hinges shrieking. Inside it was cold and dry, the air filled with the scent of ash and something older. A large brazier stood in the center, long extinguished. Faded murals lined the walls, depicting flames shaped like birds, foxes, and dragons. Airi placed the firecore in the brazier. It flared to life, casting warm light across the room. As the flames danced, the murals shifted. The creatures began to move. What? Kenta breathed. A soft rustle echoed in the temple. From the shadows, a voice spoke. You've come early. A girl stepped into the firelight. She looked around their age, maybe a year older, Her skin was dark as burnt cedar, and her eyes glowed like molten sap. She wore traveling clothes stitched with thread that shimmered like flame. "I've been waiting for you," she said. Airi stood. "Who are you?" "My name is Nagi. I was once a firekeeper, until I forgot." She stepped closer, and the flame seemed to lean toward her. "I found the second heart years ago, but I failed to protect it." She held out her hand. In her palm lay a cold ember, black as coal. "It's gone dark," she said. "The hollow wind reached me first. It took my memories, not all, but enough." Kenta frowned. "Then why are you still here?" Nagi looked at him, and for a moment the fire dimmed, because something remained, a part that remembered fire, even if I didn't know why. "I waited here, hoping someone would come." Airi took her hand gently. "Maybe it can be rekindled." She pressed her fire core to the cold ember. At first, nothing happened. Then a single flame curled between them, orange and gold, bright as a sunrise. Nagi gasped. The ember in her palm glowed red. "It's still alive," she whispered. The temple walls brightened. The murals shimmered. A new flame joined the fire core. The second heart awakened. But before they could celebrate, a shriek cut through the night. Wind slammed against the temple. The fire dimmed. "It's found us," Nagi said. "Run!" They fled through the back of the temple, Nagi leading them down a hidden path that twisted through the hills. Behind them, the hollow wind gave chase, its presence pressing on their thoughts. Airi felt memories slipping. Her mother's lullaby, Chi-chan's voice. She clutched the fire core and shouted, "Remember!" The fire in her chest flared, burning the mist away. The hollow wind shrieked and recoiled. They stumbled into a cave just as the last light faded. Inside, the walls glittered with fire crystals, casting soft light. Nagi collapsed to her knees, breathing hard. That was too close. Kenta sat beside her. "You saved us, even without all your memories." Nagi looked at them with a strange smile. "I remember something now. I had a sister. She used to sing to the fire. I think I used to sing too." Airi reached into her satchel and took out Ji-chan's songbook. "Then let's sing. Maybe the fire will remember too." Together, in the flickering light, the three children sang, a soft, ancient melody. As they sang, the cave warmed and the fire crystals glowed brighter. Outside, the wind raged but could not touch them. That night, in a dream, Airi saw Nagi as she had once been, standing in fire, her hands raised, commanding flame like a dancer. The spirits watched, proud. When she awoke, Nagi was smiling. "I remember more now. Not everything, but enough. I'll go with you until we find the next heart." And so the trio set out again. The fire core pulsed with a second flame, and behind them, the hollow wind howled in the trees, ever hunting. But the fire walked with them now. Chapter 4: The Flame That Weeps. The sun did not rise the next morning. Or perhaps it did, but the sky remained swathed in a thick rust-colored haze. The world felt dim, as though the very air had forgotten how to glow. Airi, Kenta, and Nagi stood at the mouth of the cave, wrapped in cloaks, their faces pale in the flickering light of the fire core. They had all felt it. a trembling in the earth the night before, as though the mountain had sighed in its sleep. "Something's changed," Nagi whispered, her voice hoarse. "The hollow wind isn't chasing us anymore. It's waiting," Airi said quietly. They descended the slope carefully, firelight tucked in their lantern. The second heart now burned beside the first in the core's crystal. It gave off a steady light, but its flame seemed subdued. The path turned steeper, the land drier. Pines gave way to wind-carved stones and patches of scorched earth. They passed shrines half swallowed by sand, their guardian statues cracked and eyeless. At midday, they reached a small abandoned village nestled in a canyon, stone houses with collapsed roofs, wind chimes that made no sound. "This place, it feels like it's holding its breath," Kenta murmured. In the center of the village stood a shrine built into the rock wall. An ancient fire symbol etched in gold above its gate had been blackened by soot. They entered cautiously. Inside, the walls bore murals like the ones in Nagi's temple, but here they were damaged, flames twisted into weeping figures. Charcoal shadows clung to the walls. A low sob echoed from the altar. Airi stepped forward. "Hello?" From the shadows, a creature emerged. It was made of soot and ash, its body shifting constantly, like smoke caught in wind. Its face had no features, only two glowing eyes like dying coals. "Leave," it whispered. "The fire here weeps." Nagi took a cautious step forward. "Are you the guardian of this place?" The creature shook its head. "No, I was the flame's sorrow. When she vanished, I remained, a grief unburned." Airi knelt before it. "Where is the heart?" The creature hesitated, taken by a bearer who failed. She tried to carry too much. Her sorrow poisoned the flame. It turned, drifting deeper into the shrine. They followed it through a hidden passage. The air grew warmer, but not comfortably so. It was a stifling, choking heat. They emerged into a subterranean chamber. At its center, on a stone platform, lay a girl in red robes, perfectly still. Her hair was silver, her skin porcelain. Fire flickered beneath her skin, trapped, angry. "She is the third bearer," the Suth creature said. "She tried to cleanse a broken village alone. The fire consumed her." Airi stepped close. The firecore pulsed. "Can we help her?" "Only if you share her sorrow. Only if you let the flame mourn." Airi hesitated. She turned to Nagi. Nagi nodded. Kenta put a hand on her shoulder. "We're with you." Airi knelt and placed her palm to the girl's. Her fire core flared, then went still. Suddenly, Airi's mind was flooded with visions. A village ablaze, children crying, the red-robed girl running from house to house, trying to save them all, her voice hoarse from singing fire songs, her body burning. The fire refused to stop. She begged it, screamed, but it only grew until it turned inward. Airi wept. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "You didn't fail. You were alone. That was the failure." The girl's eyes opened slowly. Her first breath released a cloud of ash. The fire core flared, and the third heart lit with a soft golden flame. The soot creature bowed its head and dissolved into sparks. The girl sat up, weak but alive. Her voice was barely more than a whisper. "I'm Kiri. I remember now. The fire needed to grieve. They carried her back to the surface. The red haze had begun to lift, and light pierced the clouds. But that night, as they camped by the river, the hollow wind returned. It came quietly. First, Eddie's songbook vanished. Then Kinta forgot how to light the lantern. Nagi stared at the stars, her face pale. My sister's name? I had it yesterday. It's gone. Kiri sat by the fire, clutching her knees. It's feeding on us, slowly. The firecore pulsed dimly. Eddie reached into her satchel and touched it. We have to fight it, not with flame, with memory. She stood and began to sing. An old song Ji-chan used to hum while tending the hearth. Her voice was shaky but steady. One by one, the others joined in. The hollow wind howled in fury, but could not breach the firelight. Chapter 5. The Fire That Remembers Dawn returned gently. The clouds that once blanketed the sky began to lift, revealing threads of soft blue and a rising sun the color of persimmons. The river by which the children had camped shimmered with golden light, and for the first time in many days, there was warmth without fire. Kinta was the first to stir, blinking at the morning like he'd forgotten what it looked like. He looked down at the lantern beside him. It had relit itself sometime in the night. It stayed with us, he whispered. One by one, the others awoke. Kiri stretched slowly, her breath no longer smoky. Nagi smiled quietly, the name of her sister blooming again in her palm. Airi opened her eyes to the fire core gently pulsing in her palm, now holding 3 warm flames, each distinct in hue. The hollow wind had passed for now, but they all knew it still lingered, watching, waiting. We're close, Airi said. I can feel it. There's one last place we have to go. They packed quietly, with the peacefulness of people who understood that the most important part of a journey isn't where it ends, but what is carried with you when you arrive. The final path led them to the highest point above Kazanuma, an ancient plateau where nothing grew but sun-bleached grass and wild stone. It was said to be the birthplace of fire itself, the place where the sky had once cracked open and poured flame into the world. The climb was long, the air thin, but as they reached the summit, something stirred. A ring of stone pillars marked the edge of the plateau. At their center stood a tree, a single ancient fire maple, its bark blackened by lightning, yet alive. Its leaves glowed with the soft, pulsing orange of a resting hearth, and standing beneath it, waiting, was En. They had removed their mask. Their face was weathered and kind, marked by time and soot. Their eyes held the sadness of ages and the fierce light of fire remembered. You have come far, En said. The fire burns bright within you, but there is one more flame you must awaken, the final heart, the one hidden within. Airi stepped forward. What do you mean? En smiled. Not all hearts are sealed in stone or shrine. The last is not something to be found, it is something to be given. They stepped aside. At the base of the tree lay an old, cracked lantern. Its glass was blackened, its handle rusted. This belonged to the first keeper, En said. He gave everything to protect the flame. His memory lives on, but the fire does not, unless you choose to give it part of your own. The children looked at one another. If I give part of myself, will I forget? Airi asked. Not all, but some, En said softly. A song, a scent, a name. But what you give will light the world anew. Airi stood in silence. Then she reached into her satchel and took out Ji-chan's fire songbook. I'll give this, she said, voice steady. I've memorized most of it, but not all. Some songs will get to learn them. And nodded. Airi knelt by the old lantern and gently placed the book inside. The fire core pulsed once, then dimmed. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, a glow rose from the lantern. A soft flame, gentle as breath, began to burn. The blackened glass cleared, the rust fell away. The lantern lifted into the air, spinning once, then settling above the fire core. A fourth flame joined the others, and far below, in Kazunuma, hearths that had not burned in years, relit, fields shimmered with warmth. Birds sang, and somewhere in the forest, the hollow wind faltered. It gave one last shiver through the mountains, then vanished. The children descended the mountain slowly. By the time they returned to Kazunuma, the village had changed. Not dramatically, not like a story told too loudly, but subtly, as though something long forgotten had been remembered. Lanterns glowed with new light. Children laughed as they played with fox-shaped paper charms. Ji-chan stood waiting at the edge of the field, tears in his eyes. You did it, he whispered. The fire remembers. That evening, the village gathered at the old temple. They brought food, stories, and songs. Kiri lit the central flame. Nagi sang an old tune she thought she had forgotten. Kenta told a story that made everyone laugh until they cried, and Airi, sitting quietly beside Ji-chan, held the fire core in her lap. Its flames burned steadily, peacefully, a warmth not meant to destroy, but to hold. She had given something up. A verse from her favorite lullaby was gone. When she tried to remember it, only silence remained. But in that silence, she felt something else. Peace. A knowing. The ember she had offered was not lost. It had simply changed hands. Before the fire died down that night, a small child approached her. Can you teach me a fire song? The child asked. Airi smiled. Yes, she said. Let's start with the one about the fox who carried the sun. Ember Valley ends not with fireworks or storms, but with soft light. A fire passed from one heart to another, a memory given so that others might remember, and in that exchange, the world warms. The fire will always remember, and now so will we.